Hi, here's Florian with a new podcast guest. Today we have here Dr. Pero Mićić, founder and CEO of the Future Management Group. So, Pero, how's it going?
Hi, I'm fine. Hope you're too.
Yes, I'm too. So, my first question is, what is future for you?
Well, the future is well, the space and time in which we all will be living and spend the rest of our lives. So the future is the time before us. And if you dig deeper, then you realize that there is not just one future and not just one kind of future, but several ways to look at the future. I call them the 5 futures glasses. So we have to differentiate if we talk about the probable future, the surprising, the shapeable, creatable future, the desirable future, or the planned future. So future needs to be differentiated more than we usually do.
And you founded the company Future Management Group. So what was the motivation to do that?
I had several motivations for that. First, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I decided that when I was maybe 13 or 14 years old. Second motivation was a fascination by the future, by all the cool stuff that was about to come, but that didn't come that fast as promised. And the third fascination was to make good decisions with help of methodology. And putting all those 3 fascinations and disciplines together, I came up with the idea of bridging the gap between people who lead organizations and people who talk, think, and write about the future. Because those futurists and the leaders, they do not really understand each other very well. So that's why I thought about, well, if there is something like change management and innovation management, then there should be something like future management, which is dealing with the future in the heads of people as a leader.
Cool. So how often would you recommend to think about the future?
I would reserve a certain part of our thinking and of our consciousness and of our brain to the future on a constant basis. So if you think about an organization, they need to organize, they need to reserve time, they need to come together and do a workshop, a session, a meeting, whatever. But as a person, you should dedicate more parts of your consciousness, more parts of your awareness to the future. Because if the future is not important, then you tend to make bad decisions in the present.
So if I think about the future, there's for me, there are several parts. There's the future coming next week, and then there's the future next year, and there's the future in 10 years. Do you, in your thinking and in your methodology, do you include all of them, or do you all focus more on a specific time frame?
The companies that we work for, the people that we work for, they usually have a time horizon that is by nature a year, 2 or 3. So we start with a future more far out. In a very fast business, 5 years is very far out. In a very slow business like energy, then 10, 15, 20 years is far out. But we do use the concept of those multiple horizons, which is the horizon 1, which is the future projects and the future opportunities that you work on today in the present. And the second horizon is where you are learning about. So you might be learning about 3D printing, or have been learning about for 30 years, but it's still out there for some companies just to be observed and learned about. It's not yet here. And in the third horizon, this is the really long-term horizon where you think about things where you maybe know the term, know the word, like the spatial web, the next phase of the internet, but there's no action to be taken right now. So the different time horizons is a good way to prioritize what you think about and work on. And in a private life as a person, then you were talking about planning, which is different. So the time horizon of a week is maybe the smallest, the shortest interval of time that you should plan for and think about. And then a year is the next one maybe, and then a decade is the third. But that's different from the companies that we work for.
Yeah, fascinating. It makes absolutely sense what you say, that like companies are depending on their business model and their field are more like in years perspective and more short term. What I always find fascinating is if companies or persons go into the direction of the impossible, like there's like the range of possible things to do. Like for VW, it's definitely possible to build a normal different car with like a similar engines like them before, but it's going into the range of closer to impossible to build a really good electric car. And before Elon Musk, it was seen as impossible to build a really good electric car. Would you say there's like it would be smart for a company to go more into the direction of the impossible part for a really long-term vision, or would you say it's how it goes right now? It makes sense to go more short-term and just keep the horizon and on the map.
If we want to be very precise with the terms, then impossible means physically impossible, which is, at least for now, beaming. This is physically impossible. Everything else is possible future. So we have a sequence. First, we have possible futures, physically doable. The second is plausible, which is it would make sense to do it, or it would make sense for it to happen. And then we need to think about what is the probable future, which is what would I bet money on will be different in the future, and what would I bet money on will be the same in the future. This is the category of the probable future. I call this the blue futures glasses, which is like for a captain on a ship, it's the sea and the weather, which is blue. You can change the weather, you cannot change the streams, and you cannot change the winds, but you can make assumptions about them. The second way to think about the future is about the surprises. And whereas the probable future has always been in mobility, that there will be some time where electric motors and electric drivetrains will be the better solution because it's technically the most efficient and the most simple solution and the most powerful solution and the most sustainable. But the probability was increased by a team at Tesla that really took the probability to a whole new level, because they said we want to accelerate the transition to sustainable transport. And this means we're increasing the probability not by manipulating something, but just by using an entrepreneurial approach to advance this kind of technology. So this is about probability. Then we have the surprising. And surprising was for most other car makers, that there came someone that surprised them by the speed and by the quality of the electric drivetrain that Tesla had. And maybe just up to recently, they were laughed at, they were underestimated. And now we see an entire global industry being chased by a pretty much small company like Tesla. So this is about the surprising future. You don't believe that it will happen, but it happens anyway. So this is about the black swans and Even the Greek 2,500 years ago, they knew that it's likely that something unlikely is going to happen. And still, all this is within the possible sphere and not the impossible, because if it's impossible, it's not going to happen. The third way to look at the future is the opportunities. So this is what you can do. And the team at Tesla in 2003, they saw the opportunity and they seized the opportunity and started the business. The fourth category of future is the preferred future. So what do you want? And using the example of Tesla again, what they want is a future of mobility that is sustainable, more sustainable than with fossil fuels. And the fifth category is the planned future. And then they planned for producing their first car. They were founded in 2003. The first car came in 2008. So they had a very ambitious plan to produce the first car, which was a sports car.
Yeah, and it's a really good example, Tesla, because probably everyone knows it from now. Because you're also working a lot with companies and help them to get their ship in the right direction. Do you see also the same effects having or will be happening in different fields, like a surprising direction where everyone else follows them?
We are seeing this. We can stick to Tesla, or at least to Elon Musk. If we look at SpaceX was founded in 2003 too, and in just 10 years, they managed to conquer 2/3 of the commercial space travel, just simply by applying simple principles, by reuse of the rockets. And by being agile and innovative and being a private company, whereas all the others were state-run companies, public companies, and they did not really care very much for efficiency. And so SpaceX surprised all the others with their agility and with their cost advantage. So taking a really capital-intensive industry and conquering 2/3 of the market share, which is a huge market of commercial space travel and space flight. This is really impressive. So the surprises is something that every person and with people, the companies, do not really look at sufficiently. That's why we do war games with companies. So we help them to imagine what their competitors, real competitors or imagined competitors, nightmare competitors, could do to them, how they could be surprised by the moves of others.
And does this also count for the long term, or is it more for dangerous, which could happen today and tomorrow?
Well, if you really think through the concept of surprise, then there is no time horizon. So a surprise could happen in a minute, or it could happen in 10 or 100 years from now. The only measure that we need to apply is plausibility and technical feasibility. So nobody's going to surprise us with, let's say, beaming as a means of travel, because most likely, very likely, it's not going to be here in the course of the next 10 or 20 years. But surprises usually do not have a time horizon. So you need to look at possible surprises without assessing the probability. That's what people in risk management make as a mistake, to my mind. And we need to look at it in terms of impact. Will it impact? Will it have an impact on our market, on our company, if someone else comes up with a solution that's 10 times better or 10 times cheaper?
Yeah. But if you say surprises, and let's stick to Tesla as example, it was everyone did know what they want to do, and how you said they just laugh at them, and the surprise came a bit in the last years that they got so successful that the other companies felt pressure to go in the same direction. Right. So it's, and like if we watch the German car makers, Mercedes was heavily invested in Tesla. Like they kept them afloat at a certain point and had a bigger stock package at Tesla
10%,
on
yeah.
Tesla 10%, and sold it years ago and made a big profit on that. So would you say the companies should learn a bit more, or what you could do to better be the surprise than being surprised?
Well, Tesla was not really a surprise, because Tesla published a master plan in 2006, which is 14 years ago.
Yeah.
And the master plan pretty much laid out what they were going to do. The surprise was not so much in will they do it and would they do it. The surprise for the traditional car manufacturers was that they really meant it, and they really managed it to implement and to produce those cars and the systems and the energy storage business so fast and so well. So here comes another factor, which is human psychology. If you have a nice, profitable, traditional car business like Mercedes or BMW, VW, Audi, and all the others, then you tend to form your assumptions the way you would like the future to be, which is, oh no, people are not going to buy those electric cars because of range anxiety. They will be too expensive. They will not be fast, and so on. So they were not really taking it seriously. This was, and so the surprise was that it came out, that it turned out to be different than they thought.
Do you think this happens quite often, or do you think the companies are mostly more right than wrong in this way of thinking about the future?
Well, the entire concept of disruption is about companies who underestimated new competitors that were laughable at first, whose products were laughable at first and underperforming at first. So underestimating the new competitors really is the concept of disruption, especially when it comes to demonetization of the business, making the same thing a lot less expensive. But is there a way to escape that? Is there a way to not tap into this trap? Yes. The core concept is what we call focusing on the effects that people buy. So Clayton Christensen called it the job to be done, but this is not emotional enough. What do people really buy when they buy a car? Of course, they buy transport from A to B, but they also buy some kind of image. They buy some kind of prestige or something. And when people decide which things they buy, then they do not care about the technology. They care about the effect. So we will be traveling from A to B in a couple of years, 5 years, 10 years from now, with autonomous vehicles that we do not own. So our A to B transport will be the same thing that we buy, but we will do it completely differently. Today, we do not buy CDs and cassettes and tapes. What we buy today is we rent the music that we listen to. So we subscribe to a streaming service, but we still buy the same thing, which is enjoyment of music.
Yeah.
And if you focus on the real effect that people buy, and get yourself out of the biases that we usually have towards our own solutions and our own products, then you can be a little bit safer than with just focusing on your products and your competencies.
Yeah. Do you have also a different example, or do you have an example from a German company which successfully implemented this or followed this advice?
Yeah, there is a client of ours called Varema. Varema is a manufacturer, or saw themselves as manufacturers of sunshades. And if you are in the sunshade business, then the sun is something negative and there's only one thing that you do. But if you focus on the effect that people really buy, is also not just to prevent yourself from being exposed to the sun, but also to use the sun. So we help them to position themselves as the sunlight managers, and with a positioning as a sunlight manager, they first totally differentiated against their competition, and second, you're changing the entire understanding of the business, because with sunshades you do not go to Sweden or Norway to do business, but with sunlight management you do.
Yeah.
So just simply changing the perspective on the effect that people buy, simply by that you can really boost your business and really safeguard your business.
Yeah, it makes absolute sense. It's a really nice example. And do you guys also help them to transform their business in the right direction? Because if you have this new vision that we want to be the sunlight management company, there's probably also a certain transformation in the thinking of the people and the thinking on the whole direction of the company needed.
Yeah, sure. So we work in 3 phases. Phase 1 is future orientation, which is about scenarios and assumptions of the future and possible surprises. The second is future strategy development, which is knowing who you are, what your mission is, your purpose, your positioning, your vision, and your business model for the future. And the third is make future strategy work, which is help your people, your team understand, buy, and support your new strategy for the future. What we do not do is do those huge change and transformation projects, because first, we don't think they're really needed if you do the first part really well, and second, you have tens of thousands of consultants and change managers whose job this is. So
yeah,
we don't want to compete with all of them.
Yeah, makes sense. So we already talked a bit about the first phase, that you explained a bit the different classes you should watch the future through, and the second one you said you helped them with a business model. What's your method there? Like, what's a really a successful method you use to help your customers?
In terms of methods and tools, there are several, but one is that we use a model for business models. We can thank Mr. Osterwalder for starting off the idea of a canvas.
Yeah.
But to my mind, this canvas is too simple. It's good for startups. It's good for really simple models. But if you deal with a grown-up company, with a traditional bigger business, even with businesses like Tesla, this is not enough.
Yeah.
So we have our own model for business models. And what we use is what we call meta opportunities. Meta opportunities are patterns, strategies, ideas, concepts that successful companies have used to succeed. One being good enough. So again, Tesla, the panel gaps of Tesla cars were bad, but they were good enough for those people who really wanted an innovative car. Even if Mercedes laughed at the panel gaps, people bought the Teslas, or some people at least bought the Teslas. So good enough is one. Good enough has also been used in the music business because the MP3 was good enough, even if it was not as good as a CD. Same with cameras and pictures. The smartphone pictures were and are good enough, although they're not as good as those taken with professional cameras. So one of those is good enough. The other is lock-in, which is how can you acquire customers and then make the money with supplying them with material or software that they need on a constant basis. And so there are a couple of hundred of those meta opportunities that you can use to go through all the innovative strategies that companies in the world have used.
So you track the status of the company and cluster the certain things they have, and then you evaluate the certain parts and then help them to shape their strategy.
Right. So it's like playing with cards. So you take an existing business and then go through all the meta opportunities and ask yourself, can I apply good enough to this company? Can I apply lock-in to this company? Can I apply community management to this company? So this is how you do it.
Cool. Do you have certain information you can recommend where you have an overview of the past experience of all the companies you mentioned?
You can work with us. It's something. It's something we don't publish, but on my YouTube channel, I tend to share some of those.
Yeah, cool. The opportunity you have, you see a lot of different companies, and you work with them together. So, where do you expect to be the German economy in 10 years?
Probable or desired?
Let's do both.
Okay. Probable is relatively weaker compared to Asian economies than today. Most likely weaker than when compared to the US. Is that good? No.
Yeah, it's definitely
why I say probable, because if I had to bet money on it, this is how I see it. Yeah. If I put on my yellow glasses, which is for the vision, for what I would like to, for what my preferred future for Germany would be, then we would need to remember and make ourselves aware of the fact that not all the societies and companies and countries in the world are that complacent as we are. So we think that having more free time is better. We think that we need to protect us from any risk in the world. We need to regulate everything. So, and if we continue to do that, then we're going to slow ourselves down. Yeah, which is okay. So, of course, nobody needs more goods. Nobody needs more software. Nobody needs more food. But relatively compared to the other competing nations and companies in the world, we will fall behind. Can we change that? I don't think we can change it really on a national level. What we can do is change it in our own life, change it in our own organizations, become more global, and maybe by this help get better again. Because in many disciplines, so be it in machinery, be it in cars, be it in software, we fell behind. So we're not in the top league anymore. This is just facts. So this is not, well, an opinion. And if we want to stay there, okay. But if we want to regain the positions that we had, then we need to be more agile, more entrepreneurial, more risk-taking, more open. Do I really think that we're going to be that? Not really.
So you said we not only need to change it in companies, we need to also change it in our own life. So what would you recommend someone in a 20-year-old job or like 20 years in the same job to do and to change?
Many things. First thing is, no matter what you do, start your own business. Not necessarily quitting your job, but be at least partially, part-time, be an entrepreneur. Second, learn to speak English and to understand English as good as you can. Do not learn other languages. Don't, at least not for professional purposes. If you like the sound of Italian and French, nice. I do too. And I do speak French, but today, really don't learn other languages. What you need to learn is everything that you need to be an excellent human being. Excellent human being means you're able to manage yourself. You're able to lead yourself. You're able to focus. You're able to implement. You are capable in communicating with other people, communicating well. You show and you know how to do empathy. Become an excellent human being and get or stay tech savvy. You need to be able to work with, to use the contemporary and the future tools. Speaking of AI and robotics, be in the game.
So I have several questions for that. The number one question is, I was thinking about a language thing, and why shouldn't I learn Chinese? Because probably the Chinese nation coming up and they get more and more important. So it could be that being able to speak Chinese is more important than English in a certain point. Or do you have a different opinion?
I have a different opinion because first, have you tried to learn Chinese?
It's super hard.
Okay, good. So there is a time investment attached to it, a major time investment attached to it, and even then you will not really be able to speak good Mandarin. Second, an entire generation, a huge generation of Chinese people are learning English, and they do it easier, with less effort, more discipline. So their English will be a lot better than your Mandarin or Chinese, whatever. And the third reason, have you looked at what the translation machines are doing?
Yeah, they're becoming better and better, yeah.
Yeah, and on an exponential speed. So I don't think you should waste your time with that.
Yeah.
There's more to learn that is more important.
Yeah, good point.
And maybe another advice that I would give: learn to invest. In terms of old age provision, there is almost no real good education in school. The only education that you get is, well, do as your parents did.
Yeah.
The easiest way is just on a monthly basis invest in an MSCI World ETF. Forget about it. Continue doing it for a couple of decades, and it's going to be a lot better than saving somewhere else on a bank or on a bank account, which is obvious today. But even 20, 30 years ago, this is a piece of advice that many people should have gotten, and they didn't.
Yeah, and they don't teach it in school. And the other point you said, you recommended to be an excellent person, and you got a bit deeper into it, what you meant by it. But if I'm a young person and freshly out of school, how can I learn to be an excellent person? And how can I orient what it means, or learn to what it means to be an excellent person?
Let me add why I think the excellent person thing is important. Because if we look at artificial intelligence, AI, everything that a human can do cognitively, AI can today or soon do better. Look at the physical things, everything that a human can physically do, the robots can today or soon do better. So what is left is people using those tools, people developing those tools, people explaining those tools, and people interacting with other human beings. So this is why I'm saying to learn to become, or to improve yourself in becoming and being an excellent person is so important, because that's what's left as a qualification. How to do that? Well, if you look at all what we used to call the soft skills, one thing, if you look at power of implementation, so you read something in a book, you hear something in a seminar, the capability to really then do it is so obvious as a necessity in qualification that we almost do not look at it. We just keep thinking if there is a course on something, then it's enough. No, the skills of implementation, which is self-management, self-control, discipline, sticking to goals, and again, being a good person in terms of reliability, dependability. This is what we need to learn to be a good partner, to be a good friend, to be a good coworker, to be a good employee, to be a good leader, be a good boss. All those, what I call, or what we used to call the soft skills, all these are necessary to be an excellent human being.
Because it's a like, if you imagine you're like a young person and you don't have a real imagination for that, because school is not perfect to teach you that, and maybe also your surroundings, your social circle has not the best values in this sense. Would you have a recommendation as a role model or a book where a young person could orient on to be sure that they go in the right direction and implement the right things?
Well, the entire discipline of self-improvement provides a plethora of books and channels. Is there one I would recommend? Well, read Emotional Excellence as the book. Read, still interesting and still good, Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins. Yeah. Read the book The One Thing. The One Thing is a book about focus. It's about focusing on really one thing at a time. In a day, in a week, in a month, in a year, in a life. Read about Atomic Habits. Atomic Habits is another book that's really good for implementation skills, which means learn and train a habit that is so small that it's easy to learn it and to acquire that habit, and then stack another habit on it. And the claim in the book is if you improve 1% a day, then you're going to be 37 times better in a year.
Yeah.
And so books like that are helping people to become excellent human. Yeah. And of course, books about values and religion and meditation, yeah. But I think that the implementation skills, so do what you really decided to do. We all have good resolutions for the new year. but we end performing and we end pursuing them like in the third week of the year.
Yeah.
And this is really a tragedy. So implementation skills is, I think, the best thing we can learn, because then we can implement a new habit, a new value, a new way to speak to people. Implementation skills is everything.
Yeah. And always like what comes with it is to always check if you make progress and if you are on the right track, and never just live in a day, always have an idea where you want to be in the future.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's my core message. The core message or the motto is have a bright future. Make sure that you work on something that's really energizing you. Let's cite Elon Musk. I'm just trying to think about the future and not be sad. So he has made those visions for himself. He set those visions for himself in order to have something to look forward to every single day. This is what gives him energy. This is what gives him power, and this is what gives him focus to use the right, the right, well, cornerstones, puzzle pieces, whatever that he comes across in order to pursue this vision. Yeah. I wrote a book about that phenomenon. The book is in German. The English translation has not yet been published, but it's Escape the Short-Term Trap. Make sure that you can see your future self, your future me in front of you 5 years or 10 years from now, and make sure that this future self is really emotionally important for you, which is ask yourself questions like, what is it that I do not want to regret in the future? What is it that I do not want to be ashamed of? What is it that I want to be happy about? What is it that I want to be proud of? These are the questions that you should ask about your future self. And if you make the future, your future me, important, then it's going to help you in the present day to make better decisions and to spend your time more wisely.
Yeah, makes absolute sense. That's good advice. And also because young people say often like, I don't really know what should I do and what should I focus on. What my recommendation for that is, keep walk through the world with open eyes. There are so many problems in this world, and then find out which problem has the most meaning for you, and you want to have it solved with your soul and with your being, and then focus exactly on that and try your best to solve that, whatever that means, and learn about it and stay curious.
There's one element that needs to be added. By the end of March, this quarter, this summer, June, then do what seems to be the best thing that you found. Do not wait for the optimal thing. Do not wait for the optimal business, for the optimal job, for the optimal field of study. Make a decision that you have time for a month or 2, 3 or 4, or 10, but then do something and start your journey, because you will never be absolutely sure that you found your thing, and you will never be absolutely sure that the world needs your thing and is going to pay for your thing. Yeah. So you need to make to set a date, to set a deadline.
Yeah, like how you said, like always be rather do something than just wait or think. Yes. So because doing shows you the real thing, and then it's a fine mix between keep trying, like don't give up because something works not on the first try. But if the horse is that you're sitting on, you should step up and do something else. So This is a fine line in perspective to see how to pivot means how to change something, what you do, and still keep the goal there or change the goal completely. That's something you need to decide in a retrospective on a certain always like with a deadline and say, okay, until now, what happened now? Do I really think from an outside perspective that's the right thing still? So, Pero, if you want to know more about you and learn more from you, what would you recommend to go to?
The easiest way would be to subscribe to either my German or my English YouTube channel. So Pero Mićić, Leaders Foresight. This is the name of the channel. Same thing with podcasts on all the major platforms. And if you want to meet me live, there is a regular event that we do, which is the Leaders Vision Day. We do that event in 7 cities across the German-speaking countries, and we will be doing it internationally in English-speaking countries as well. Leaders Vision Day. There is a URL with the same words, leadersvisionday.com.
As a last question before we finish up the podcast, if you could go back in time and go to your young self, to your 18-year-old self, fresh out of school, what else or what exactly would you tell him?
Well, we've been talking about that already in terms of financials, what you should learn. I would recommend to speak to and to listen to older people. I remember when I was younger, I thought that, or I had the impression that I already knew it all.
Yeah.
That my perception on the world was good, was correct, that I had a good mental representation of how the world works. And this is not the case. So this is why consulting and coaching can be so valuable, because it is an abbreviation, it is a shortcut. It can save you years or decades with better understanding the world. Again, if someone got the advice with the age of 20, do not invest in something else than in businesses, than in stocks, and do it on a regular basis. You got enough time to survive any crisis and any crash. Just keep on going. This is one sentence, maybe 2, and this is invaluable. You cannot really pay for that advice. So speak to older people, interview older people with this question: what did you change in your perception about the world in the last 20 years? What did you learn? How are you seeing the world differently today? Yes, we are in a world where older people, for the first time, really can learn a lot from younger people.
Yeah.
But we haven't got out of that world where younger people can learn about the life experiences or learn from the life experiences of people who are 10, 20, 30 years older.
Yeah.
And if you do not have the parents who can give you the advice, look for substitutes. Not for, like, don't leave your parents, but make sure you speak to people and don't use it as an excuse that your parents were not able to help you and to consult with you. Go look for somebody else.
Yeah. Most people are really happy to give advice. So check for people which have something you would like to have in the future, and then talk to them how they got it and how they became to it, and then ask them. It can never hurt to ask, even if they say no, they don't have time. You try it, and you have nothing to lose.
Right.
Cool. Pero, it was a pleasure. Thank you very much.
So it was to me.
And see you next time, guys.
See you. Goodbye.